we ask that you will be the third person in our meeting to guide us through deliberation and questions and so on that needs to take place. Lord, thank you for the journey of the and we commit ourselves as we ask you to help us to make this meeting a very productive one and every pray. Amen.
Amen. So, how is everything going for you?
Well, it's going. We had our annual meeting this past weekend, and that was kind of a highlight for the weekend. So, yeah.
What do you typically do at your annual meeting?
Sorry?
What do you typically do at your annual meeting?
So we have two parts. So the first part was to present the budget and the nominees for the next year leadership. And then also share the focus for the year, which is actually passing on the faith to the next generation, passing what kind of faith. So it ties in with what I'm doing now. So I told him that, the Prayer for You campaign is part of that aspect of it. And the Journey with You, which comes later. So I shared with them that, when I get the current, I don't know how critical it is to have them in their lives. And in light of our conversation last week, they mentioned that there are at least, 2 or 3 significant adults in the life of a young person to help to reinforce the message there that it's important to get everybody on board. But time will tell to see how much, we do have a core group who committed, but to see that it expands to have more, basically all adults, to see that they can play a part in the life of a young person.
Yeah. That's great. Audley, do you have some stories of, you've been doing this for a while now. It sounds like years, this rite of passage thing. Do you have some stories that are of really great breakthroughs or examples of people that really thrive because of the rite of passage thing that you're doing, or I'm trying to think of your outcomes, not just for this course, but for your dissertation.
Okay. Well, one particular young man who actually the same age as my son, he was in his first rite of passage celebration. He got married a year ago, which is the first of all the young men, including my son.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that he did that was to me a sign of maturity, a sign of coming of age. And in fact, did write a letter to me, a note of thanks for being the man in his life, like a father figure in his life. So he did acknowledge the role that I played. He actually grew with my son. We went to the same school, and he basically did the same things. They were at my home often, so he was like an adopted son unofficially. So to hear him, write this note of thanks was an encouragement because of the influence, that was on him through the process.
That's great. That's wonderful. How long ago when did he get married?
Last year. Yeah.
All right.
2 years, 2 years. He's a child, and he wants me to bless that child.
Yeah.
The next step too.
Oh, that's great. I was just getting you started thinking about how you'll report out about a lot of this when you're writing it out, and I'm sure you have lots of examples. But so you're going to want to put in for this independent study, but also for your dissertation, if that's the direction that you head, you're going to want to write about research to cite some of these things that we're going that are building the foundation. But I don't want you to lose your story too, that you'll be sharing with the world about these types of things, and so yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you for mentioning that. Okay.
Do you have anything that you wanted to talk about based off our discussion last week, or?
Well, I guess I did get your note about the courses for next year in January. I could find on the website what the courses are being offered. I was trying to find it. I thought if I went into Popular, I would know, but that didn't give me any directions to how to know what's available.
Okay. Let's look here. So I'm going to share my screen with you.
Okay.
All right. This is Populi, which should look familiar to you. And my view might look a little bit different than yours since I have the director view or whatever. But what we can do is go in, and for some reason I got to follow up with Julie because she has our independent study for this term in October, and then she registered you for the independent study in January, which is not a big deal because we got a late start on it. And if it carries over, you and I had talked about getting the majority of these Zoom meetings and content done by the end of December, so that you could focus on on your other course in January. But at the same point, we might just want to leave it in January as well because you'll be writing your project then probably. And so we'll figure that part out later. But let's look here at what's being offered. So when you go into Populi, well, first of all, I always encourage people, you can just send Judy an email and say, hey, I'd like to register for this course in January. Can you help me out? And so she'll be able to explain it a lot better than I would, since that's part of her role as the registrar. But I wanted to just, I pulled up the list of open courses for the January term, and just bear in mind that you might not be able to see all these because these are for all the programs. But several of the courses that are being offered for DTL, one is this asset-based community development and appreciative inquiry. I get a lot of good feedback on this course because Kit Danley, she's an amazing professor. She's on the board of the Christian Community Development Association. Okay. And she is based out of Arizona. She leads a nonprofit organization. It's a faith-based Christian organization. And she does remarkable work. So this is a 4-credit elective that you might want to consider. And this is actually, in my personal opinion, I think it's a really helpful tool for pastors because it helps you to build equity in your neighborhood and impact people in your neighborhood through interviews and through asset mapping and things like that. And it's something that you can actually take your whole congregation through, or even young people in your congregation as you learn about these principles. You might already be really aware of ABCD and appreciative inquiry, but if not, it's a great course for pastors. The other course I would recommend is this Poverty, Diversity, and Social Justice. This is being taught by Dr. Wayne Weathers. He's a pastor in Philadelphia. He's an African-American pastor. So he's not too far down the road from you. I'm in Pittsburgh, and he's on the other side of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And that course is, I've taught that for the past 4 years, and I'm handing it off to him, and he's going to have kind of his own spin on it. And I'm sure it's going to be great. But we do a lot of looking at different ways to bring about transformation through addressing complex issues in your city, like poverty, like racism, a lot of these different things. And so that's one for you to consider. I think those are probably the two main ones that I would suggest for you. I'm trying to look through here. There's a couple independent. Oh, here's our independent study. But there's a couple independent studies that are putting together this transformational leadership course. You would not want to take this because you already did your overture in Fresno, right?
That's it.
So this transformational leadership course is just a replacement course for anyone who's not able to make it to a city for an overture.
Okay.
And yeah, I think there's this one down here, but you probably wouldn't be interested in it unless you were interested in the subject. This is Women Leaders as Catalysts for Collaborative Community Building and Advocacy. This is a women in leadership track that BGU is kind of rolling out. There are a couple men who are taking the course because they have women in their churches that are on their staff teams or whatever that they want to try to impact and empower. So I wouldn't, automatically rule that out for you if you were really interested. But it is mostly women who are taking that track, the women in leadership track. So I think that's.
Timeline that in terms of, can I see this in terms of curriculum and all the requirements somewhere else? Would I be able to?
Yeah, if you want to try to review those, I can send you the syllabi for those courses, or you can ask the professor of record. So you would, for instance, email Dr. Weathers and say, "Hey, I'm interested in taking that course. I'm not sure yet. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" That type of thing. And you could do the same thing with Dr. Danley too, with Kit, and just say, "Hey, I'm interested in taking the course. What do you think?" But let's look in here real quick, just so you can, since we have some time this morning. So I just went into the asset-based community development. This is what you'll see when you register for the course. And we'll go over here. The required books that she has for the course: Building Communities from the Inside Out, Prophetic Imagination, The Thin Book of Appreciative Inquiry, Transforming Power. That's a classic by Robert Linthicum. And then When Helping Hurts is also a classic book as well, for community development. Let's see if we can find her syllabus here. Here's the syllabus. And let's see. Of course, we'll examine the benefits of ABCD and AI as contrasted with the deficit-based approach to community transformation. Students will examine the concepts of abundant community based on the work of McKnight and Block and others, as well as define and execute ABCD AI projects in their own communities. So this is what I was telling you, that as a pastor in your area, this could be really helpful. You'll get out and do interviews with people in your neighborhood and do an asset mapping exercise that you could do with your leadership team there at the church. You can see that's what Kit looks like, and she's got some, looks like Lowell will be guest lecturing with her. Okay. You can see some of the learning outcomes here for the course. And you're probably interested in the, let's go back and just look at March 24th is when the projects are due for this course, just if you're looking at your timing there. It has a 20-page individual project that's due. And let's check out the reading list. Here we go. Prophetic Imagination by Brueggemann. Yep, here's When Helping Hurts. It looks like Kit put her book in here, A Community Called Grace, The 10 Core Values of Neighborhood Ministries. Thin Book of Appreciative Inquiry, Building Communities from the Inside Out, and Transforming Power. So like I said, these are all classic Christian community development books that she has on there. And then you would fill out your number of pages with books from this optional list.
The online library that BGU has, you access it by Kindle, like you download to your computer? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's different. You can always, before you register for a course, you can email Jennifer Roman. She's the librarian for BGU. And you can ask her, but it says available in BGU online library. Oftentimes these are PDF files that they're like copies, so that you can get the book for free. And then if it says Kindle or ebook or has the cost, this might be one that you would have to purchase that's not in our library. So, but the other thing that you can do, let's see here, just to make sure about that. Prophetic Imagination. In Populi, the library is, so we're in college management right now. But in the top left, there's a link in Populi called Library. And this will be great for you to know as you do your dissertation research as well. And so this actually takes you to BGU's online library. And you can see there's Jennifer's email. You can always email her a question if you're looking for a book and you want to find out if the university has it in a PDF version so that you don't have to buy it. But we're going to type in the prophetic. All right, The Prophetic Imagination by Walter Brueggemann. So this is a book for that course. It says available online. So let's just click in here and see. So there you see right there. It's available as a download in PDF version. So let's go back. I'm sorry, what?
It can be printed.
Yep, so you can print it out or you can make it into a file on your computer and just look at it that way. So let's try one more. Let's try When Helping Hurts. Okay, so you can see they have the information about When Helping Hurts in here, but they don't have it available as a PDF download, which means you would need to buy this one. But it does have the information. Yeah, so yeah, you could go to Amazon and buy it. They have a link to it from there, that type of thing. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to go back to college management. So just as a reminder, that's in when you log into Populi, it's in the top left corner on the library tab. You can go into the library and look at all the resources they have in there. You could also, another thing that you could do for research for this course is you can search a subject such as rite of passage. I don't know if anything will pop up or not. But we just did a search for rite of passage, and then you can kind of scroll through and you can look at dissertations, articles, different things like that, that could help you with your research. You know what, to make it easier, let's do this one. Mentoring. So yeah, you're going to probably get a lot more on mentoring, but here's an article. Let's see. Role of mentoring in spiritual transformation, a faith-based approach to recovery from substance abuse. So there's lots of different things that you can research when you go into the library, different articles. Let's look at the review of undergraduate mentoring programs. And then you can see that they have the article here as a PDF. So you can just click on that. It'll open up. And then these are the things that you would cite, you know, as you're doing your dissertation research, you would go in here and cite different content from the different articles. All right, sorry, I took us down a rabbit trail there. Let me go back to reality.
So are you you access me to the curriculum or the
Yeah.
How could I do that from my end?
I would say go into log into Populi. You said you've already done that.
Right.
And when you log into Populi, your opening page should look something like this.
Yes.
And so I would say go look around in Populi in these tabs, but I think it would be under academics.
Okay.
And it would be maybe under courses.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And then when you're looking through the courses, then you can like click on the courses and it'll take you into, you should be able to at least look at the syllabus for the course, I'm thinking. I don't know that for sure what students have access to. But you can also, that would be a great question to ask Dr. Melton as well, is let her know, hey, I'm interested in registering for a January course. Can you help me out with that? And she'll get you situated. Or if you ask her, hey, I just want to look at the syllabi for the course, then she can maybe get those to you as well, because all the syllabi go through her. So this is the other one I was telling you about: poverty, diversity, and social justice. And there's Wayne. And let's just go look at the reading. I'm not sure if he changed the reading list for the course or not, but let's go take a look at it. All right. He also has one: Helping Hurts, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. This is a new book that he put in there. I'm not sure who that is. Nobody: Casualties of America's War on the Vulnerable. Half the Sky, The Heart of Racial Justice, Geography of Grace, The End of Poverty, and Jesus and the Disinherited. So, and then here's a look at his recommended list. So, yeah, I think that you should just get into Populi and explore a little bit, and then you can always call Dr. Melton or email her, and she can get you the syllabi if you want to take a look at those to make your decision. Sound like a plan?
All right. No, I think if I got it correctly, graduating 2020, I need to take, there's a particular timeline I need to work with in order to finish by 2020. You know, I think it's the one by dissertation, that study, the one on dissertation, writing dissertation.
Yeah.
I think there's a timeline you have to take by a certain time in order to.
Yep. Well, why don't we take a look at your program worksheet? All right. So here's your program worksheet that we worked through. And yeah, we had slated you to take that project design methodology course in April. So here's where you're at. And we can go back in and look at when that course is offered. But so you're done with your overture. You're done with your personal assessment. Those are the two big foundational ones. You completed one independent study already, another independent study that we're working on right now. And then January 19, I just wrote BGU online course in here because you're still trying to pick which one you want to take. But if you take and complete one of those courses here in January, then that means that you would take your project design methodology course in April to build out your proposal. And then in midsummer, you would when you're done with your proposal and you pick out your dissertation supervisor, you would send that proposal to the academic cabinet to approve. And then you would start doing your research, and then you would enroll in doctoral final project part 1 in July. That would take you into the fall. Your whole rough draft of your dissertation would be due on December, right around early December. That means that you would have chapter 1 due in September, chapter 2 and 3 would be due in October, and then your whole rough draft would be due in early December. And then you would enroll in dissertation part 2 in January of 20. That's when your second reader goes through it, your technical reader goes through it, you schedule your oral review. Usually you do that in about March or so. And then any changes or recommendations that they have, you make those in April and May. And then you graduate in early June 2020.
Okay. So the curriculum, if I don't can I take the April project design in April? Okay, if I didn't do the next course in January, would I miss a window then for?
No, not necessarily. Another option that you could do is, let me X out of this here and get back into my, all right. Another option that you could consider is doing your, where's project design methodology? You could do this course right here in January, project design methodology, that's RES 702. And that would help you to map out your entire proposal. That means you wouldn't take an elective in January. You would just focus on that. But then you would be done with your proposal by the end of March, which would be nice to have that out of the way so you could get some momentum with it. And then let's look at the electives. You would just need to take care of an elective at some point after that. What you don't want to do usually is be taking an elective right when you're writing your dissertation. And I actually have a student who's doing that right now, so it's not impossible. He's trying to write his dissertation while he's finishing out his last elective. But I always encourage students to try to get it out of the way if you can before you're writing your dissertation. So these are, if you wanted to switch it up, these are some April courses that are open. And sorry.
What I'm looking at is, well, I'm just questioning the feasibility of finishing this and starting the next one in January. So if I skip the January and aim for April, there's no way to catch up.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you would skip. The main thing is if you want to graduate in June of 2020, you need to take that final project course, design course, either in January or in April. April would be the latest you could take it. Yep. So, but I hear what you're saying now. Sorry, I was misunderstanding. If you wanted to just focus on finishing up this independent study in January and then take the research project course in April, you would still be okay to graduate if you took one of your elective courses. And let's take a look and see what's offered in July here. So in July, they have the family in the era of globalization. That's a 4-credit elective that's being taught by Dr. Weathers. Leadership for Effective Collaboration with Paulette Jordan. Donors, Grants, and Social Media. Servant Leadership, Character, and Ethics. That's being taught by Dr. Henry. So yeah, it looks like there's some good elective courses that are, you can see there's not many students enrolled in those yet because they usually wait until closer. But there are several 4-credit elective courses that are offered in July that you could take if you wanted to just focus on finishing this course in January and doing your research bridge course in April. And worst case scenario, if you did have to take an elective while you were writing your dissertation next fall, it is possible to do. So that, like I was just saying, I have a student who's doing it right now. It's maybe not ideal, doing those at the same time, but it's a possibility. And these are the courses.
A window of time in the summer to take one course, like based on the times courses are offered, there would be a window of time if I didn't take it in January, take it in July. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And technically speaking, you could take 2 classes at the same time in April. I just really discourage that for the students. So, but yeah, so you could do April research final project course, and then July take one of these elective courses, and then that would be July, August, and September. You would finish that at the end of September. And at the same time you were taking that course in July, you would be doing your research and writing your first chapter of your dissertation that would be due in September to your advisor, to your supervisor.
Okay, when I start in April, it's overlapping the July-September course. So what you're saying?
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is the process of writing your dissertation begins with when you start on April and taking that project course. What you're going to produce in April, May, and June, you have two big goals from that class. One is to select your dissertation supervisor, and you'll select that person from BGU's resource network of faculty members. But then the other big thing that you have is your final project proposal. And your final project proposal is a shell of your full dissertation. So you have each of the chapters that will have between 4 and 7 pages in it. And so you'll have your table of contents and then your shell chapters. And then and what you do in that class from April, May, and June in those 3 months is the project supervisor, the person who teaches that course, will help you with your research questions. They'll help you to select your which research methodologies you're going to use. So let's say that you decide to do interviews and a survey, then they would help you to design your survey, to develop your research questions, all that stuff. And then at the end of that 3-month class, you're done at the end of June with that class. But what you have then is this proposal, and that proposal, you and your dissertation supervisor, he or she has to sign off on it, and then they send it to the academic cabinet at BGU to approve it. And so the academic cabinet will read through your proposal, and they'll get back to you and they'll say, okay, Audley, we love where you're headed with this. Go for it. We don't have any changes. Or they'll say, we like your proposal, but we think we want you to change your research questions a little bit, or we don't think you should do so many interviews. We think that you should do a case study as a part of your research. So you never know what the academic cabinet's going to come back with, but it's usually feedback that's really helpful. So once the academic cabinet approves your final project proposal next summer, let's say it's by the end of June, you finish it and you submit it to the cabinet. Then in July, you would enroll in your other 4-credit elective course, and that's kind of a separate thing. But also, if you take that elective course aside, from that part on, from July on, is really you just writing out your dissertation. And so you'll have a set of timelines. You can enroll in that, see this course here, dissertation part 1. So you can enroll in this course in July, or you can enroll in that course in October. It doesn't really matter. It's more a matter of when you want to pay for it. But either way, you'll.
That's what it's called. It's the work.
Yep.
With the professor and such.
Yep.
That's what
Part 1 is you and your professor working together, your dissertation supervisor working together to then fill out all of the research for your dissertation.
Okay. So it's actual work, not necessarily like a Zoom meeting, the regular.
Right. This is crunch time for you. This is getting everything in your head out on paper.
Okay.
So, and then your dissertation supervisor is there to support you and answer any questions you have, but also they read your work. So I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about with that. So this is the final project handbook. And this will be, besides your actual Bible, this will be the next document that is your Bible for that for that season of your life. And this goes over every detail of how to produce a great final project. And but what I wanted to show you is this is what you'll be working from. It outlines the whole project for what a final project is, what your research methodologies are, and but so here's the different research methods that you can do for your project. But then what I wanted to show you was this timeline right here. So see where it says January through June? This is you enrolled in that that project design course, creating your dissertation proposal. And then usually they like to have those all kind of reviewed by, they want to have your dissertation supervisor and your proposal done by the end of June. After receiving your comments on your final project draft, make changes based on the recommendations, and then you can go ahead and start doing your research, because then September 10th, you're going to have your chapter 1 written and submitted to your project supervisor for approval. Then October 22nd, this is for this year, your dates will be a little bit different for next year, but October 22nd, write chapters 2 and 3. December 3rd, the entire rough draft is due to your supervisor. And then your supervisor will read it and get back to you with edits that they want you to make. And then December 17th, your project goes to the director of final projects for them to review. And then you can see these different timelines. You have to get it to your second reader. There's a technical reader from BGU that reads through it in February. And then once you complete those revisions in March, then you can schedule your oral review. And from that point out, you're on your path to graduation. So you can see that the process will be kind of mapped out for you once you get to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And just for the record's sake now, based upon the time we're working with now, this course should finish by, from your calculation, it's begin by when you started in the 7th, I think you started?
Yeah. So in an ideal world, we would have had your independent study proposal approved in September, and then you would have started in this October term in that first week of October. But for a variety of reasons, I think you got your proposal in, I think it was like towards the end of October, and then we got it approved in early November, which means we got about a 5 or a 6 week late start in this October term to get it done. So the other students are working to get their projects done by December 31st. And the other courses that I taught were already done with all the Zoom meetings and with all the content. They're just writing their papers and getting those to me by December 31st. I think what you're considering doing is, I think what Judy did was just, she set it up for October when it first came in, and we got started, which is great. And then she also carried it over into January since we got a late start. So we'll just have to communicate. If you just want to keep it there in January, and then what's that?
January as what? Official start?
Well, we'll just have to figure that out. I think we can get to the bottom of it. We just have to connect with Judy and see why she set it up in 2 terms like that. But obviously, I wouldn't make you do all the work over again that we've done. So it would just be a matter of, we're probably going to be mostly done with our Zoom meetings by the end of December here. And then you and I, you could just have all of January, February, and March to finish off your research for the course and to write your individual document. So it's really a matter of timing for you. If you would prefer just to keep the course set up in January for the full term, then your final document for me for this independent study course would be due on March 24th.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Yeah. If you wanted to try to rush and scramble and get everything done in a paper to me by December 31st so that you could just be done with this course, I'll work with you on it. But I'm not like I know what it's like being at Christmas time being a pastor as well. So I'm sure you have a lot on your plate. That
That's good. That's good. All right. So then to register for the January course, then it's done by, I could check to see when the deadline is. I still consider whether I can do it or not. So.
okay, yeah, you've got some time to think about it, but I like the plan of you finishing this paper in the January term. That'll be due March 24th, and you and I we can still set up a Zoom meeting or two in January or February if you want to, just to touch base. We would probably space things out a little bit if you ended up just focusing on that for January, and then your paper will be due March 24th, and then you would enroll in that April research course, and then you would actually start ordering the books for that and start reading in March for that course.
Okay.
And so it wouldn't be a waste of time. You could actually start mentally preparing for what your project's going to be in this January term, and then that course would be done by June 30th. That's when your dissertation proposal would be done into the academic cabinet, and then you would register for a 4-credit elective in July. And at the same time you were taking that course, you would start thinking about your research. You start doing your research for your dissertation, and then you would enroll in just to space it out payment wise, you would enroll probably in the part 1 of your dissertation in October, and then you would roll in part 2 of your dissertation in January of 2020, and then you'd be looking at a June 2020 graduation.
So even you enroll in the dissertation part 1 or 2, the time frame that you have is up to, I guess there's a time frame as well, right? When you have to submit certain courses.
Yep. Yep. So you're
January 1, you complete by when? If you second part, how much time do you know to get?
Yeah, I'm trying to see how to explain that as best as I can, but even though let's say that you're enrolled in dissertation part 1 for the October 2019 term. The more important thing for you to be doing is to be focused on that final project handbook document that I showed you. Those are actually the dates that really matter. So even if you're technically enrolled in that class and paying for it in October 2019, you'll actually be working on writing your dissertation and working with your dissertation supervisor in July, August, September. So, but what I was suggesting is you just enroll in that course in October officially, just so that you can space it out, payment wise. It's because you're going to have this January independent study, then an April course, a July elective, an October part 1, and a January part 2. But really, your dissertation writing process begins with that proposal in April, May, and June when you're putting that together, and then it'll just carry right over into July and August and September. You'll start writing. So the main thing is your chapter 1 of your dissertation, your completed chapter 1 will be due in September. So yeah. So even if you said, hey, I'm going to table my dissertation in July because I'm just going to focus on doing this online course, that's fine. I mean, it depends on how much research you're planning to do, but I feel like I'm clouding it a little bit for you. Am I bringing some clarity?
Yeah. I had to see how piece of it was, because I know that it was prerequisite was a project design, and I wanted to make sure I can get it in a timely manner, so it's possible.
Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions about that, like I said, if it's a specific registration question, you can always ask Dr. Melton. She can help you out with that. But you can always just shoot me an email or something, and I'll help you. Part of my job as the director is to make sure that students are registering each term. So there's 4 terms in the year. I usually reach out to everybody and say, hey, are you interested in taking a class in January? So that's part of what prompted that email to you, was just to get you thinking ahead a little bit. So
right. Okay.
Well, I have another call at 10, so I want to make sure I share something with you real quick today for you to think about for next week. What I wanted to share is not that. We just did that. I wanted to share this concept of developmental mentoring versus prescriptive mentoring. And this is just something for you to think through. If you do a Google search for developmental versus prescriptive mentoring, you'll find lots of resources about this on the internet, and you might find some scholarly articles. But I wanted to just introduce the difference between the two of them to you. Prescriptive mentoring relationships, I'll just read this, tend to be more mentor-driven and focused on sometimes unrealistic expectations of transforming the child. This includes Big Brothers and Big Sisters calls the mentees littles. This includes believing the little needs to take equal responsibility in maintaining the match relationship. I won't read the whole thing for you. Develop mentoring relationships tends to be more about the relationship. Mentors spend a lot more time just getting to know their littles, are flexible with their expectations, and take cues for activities and needs from the littles themselves. Whether the littles tell them verbally or the big observes and listens to hear what the little would enjoy. Mentors are flexible, adaptable, and persistent in developmental relationships. This is an interesting way that they kind of put it, but what I wanted to go over with you is that this concept, prescriptive relationships are important in the lives of young people. It's where you're prescribing their behavior. And this would be for people like a parent with a child is a prescriptive relationship. A child needs to learn about how to behave, and a parent's responsible for kind of helping them do that. So the parent sets up boundaries and teaches them things. Another example would be a teacher is a prescriptive relationship. If a child comes into third grade and they're not yet reading at a third grade level, then it's the teacher's job to get them from a second grade reading level to a third grade reading level. That's what they're prescribing for them. Another example would be a tutor. If you go to a tutoring program and that person helps you with your homework, they're trying to help the child get their homework done. So what I'm saying to you is that prescriptive mentoring relationships are important, but they're just not, they're just different from developmental relationships. A developmental relationship is usually someone like a mentor, maybe a relative, maybe a coach or a youth pastor or someone like that, or someone who works for like a youth organization. This is someone that develops a relationship with a young person that's about helping them develop. It's about helping them to, instead of kind of changing their behavior, it's kind of encouraging them to grow into life at the pace that they're able to go. And so a lot of mentoring programs and a lot of research is kind of built on this concept of this space of developmental relationships. And as you're doing some research, wanted to just put that in front of you as something that you are going to want to probably look into a little bit. So the adults in your congregation, they might run into some troubles with the young people in your program kind of shutting down or not wanting to be a part of it if the adults in your program are acting too prescriptive. If the kids feel like they're projects that are being fixed, then they they probably won't keep showing up or keep hanging out with that adult, right? They'll find something else to do or they'll stop listening to them. And so when you're encouraging your volunteers from your congregation as they start down this journey with you process, make sure that they're really just journeying with them and not trying to fix their behavior. And it doesn't mean that you don't care when the kids mess up or something like that. You just have to assume that when a young person makes a mistake, their parents are going to tell them about it. The school administrator is going to tell them about it. Every other responsible adult in their life is going to try to fix their behavior. A developmental mentoring relationship comes in and prays for them, walks with them, listens to them, encourages them, supports them. And both of these types of relationships are needed for young people to thrive. So So this is a really special.
And you would acknowledge the problem, but then direct it to the person. Like say, failure in school, you're more encouraging to see the teacher, not as opposed to being the tutor for that idea.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So you're putting ideas in front of them to help them think through how they might handle the situation differently. You're being a good friend to them, that type of thing. You're praying with them, praying for them, and so most of the time when I have a mentoring match that closes, it's because the mentor did too much of this prescriptive mentoring and not enough of this like developmental mentoring. So
one thing that would be helpful for me is if you could probably send to me your cover when you meet with your mentors.
Yeah, sure. I'll send. I'll track that down, then I'll email it to you.
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
All right, Audley. Sadly, I'm gonna have to wrap up here because I have this other meeting at 10. But we'll connect again. Are we set for next Tuesday as well?
We said so, yeah.
Okay.
The next time we just Christmas. I don't think you want to call it Christmas.
No. We'll connect next Tuesday for sure, and we'll keep things going. So. All right. Well, it was great connecting with you today, and I will see you next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. All right. Thanks.
All right.